Coming up on today's episode, moon mining gets approval from the US government, Sentry Mode has a new in-car viewer that we've all been waiting on, and possible evidence of a parallel universe. Let's get ludicrous. Hey there, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool future stuff that's happening today that's going to make tomorrow totally ludicrous.
Wow, yeah,
I'm Joe Scott with the Answers with Joe YouTube channel. With me is Tim Dodd.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut from Everyday Astronaut YouTube on the internet. And with us is Ben Solons.
What's up, guys? It's Ben Solons from the Sometimes Astronaut YouTube channel. Oh. And today we've got some big news, it sounds like, Tim.
Well, we get to start off. Well, first off, in our Discord channel, we have many people to say hi to, but one of them I need to say hi to right away. And that is Trevor, because Trevor, last week, I don't know if you remember, but I had this 100 push-up bet with Trevor. And yeah, on whether or not the center core of Falcon Heavy for the Dragon XL missions to Gateway was going to be further than I said it'd be at least 1,600 kilometers downrange for the center core. And we bet whether or not I would have to, with who of us would do 100 push-ups. Well, I have the answer.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Is Tim going to do push-ups for the first time?
Looks like I'm going to be doing some push-ups in the background here while you guys do start off with other news things. I'll be doing them in 20 sets of 20, so...
That's trust me, once your chest fatigues, that 20 drops.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll start off with 20. So I'll be doing it in the background here. Yeah. But go ahead, you guys start your little news. I'll be off in the background and then for the rest of the show.
So, in addition, thank you to everyone on Patreon for supporting us. Yeah. That is how you get access to listen to the show live, as we have several folks.
That's how you finally get Tim to do exercise.
Armin, Sean, Trevor, William, all kinds of folks in there. So thank you guys for joining us live. And those that are interested, you can go. I can't believe he's actually doing. This is going to be a long show.
Oh, people listening in their cars are missing out. We're just seeing Tim's head bop up and down at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, no rep. No, that last one didn't count.
No rep. Get back.
Okay. There's the first 20.
Every 10 minutes we'll have you do that. And also, thank you to everyone that joined our highlights channel. If you guys didn't know, I think last week was the first time we mentioned it.
Yeah.
But if these episodes are a bit long, as they tend to be, we all like to talk, and we're all good friends, so we do that a lot. And you just want the bite-sized bits, the news bits that we actually cover, go check out our highlights channel, which we'll put in the description here. I believe you can also just go to the olfpod.com/YT. It'll take you to our main YouTube channel, and then you can go over to
and I think we're getting the custom URL too now, because I think enough of you subscribed from last week's show. So I think we'll have youtube.com/OLF highlights. Oh, I should say the answer.
Make it happen.
The answer to how far. By the way, the actual answer to how far downrange the Falcon Heavy core will be is around 1380. So I was quite a bit off.
And when was this announced? Like since last week, or?
Basically, right after the show, I did the calculations.
You did the math on it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did the math with Flight Club with Declan Murphy. So there's a chance that we're wrong. So maybe. How about this?
Trevor, you're not in the clear yet. You may still have to do some push-ups.
It'll take like 3 years before we ever see that flight profile, but Trevor. All right. So what are we actually starting off with here? We have a lot to talk about. I mean,
well, we just launched some people to the space station, did we not?
Yeah, we did.
Because you had mentioned something before we started that this was a brand new rocket that they went up on.
Technically,
it got me curious.
Yeah, I mean, in all technicality. So last night, like when I was trying to stay up and I fell asleep trying to watch the launch last night. But last night, it was mission MS-16. New crew flew to the International Space Station, of course, on Soyuz, because, as you know, we still don't have the commercial crew program yet, so this is the only vehicle that is currently flying crew. But this was technically the first time a crew has flown on an orbital mission on a new rocket or a new variant of a rocket since 2002. So the way this works, and this is kind of confusing, is the Soyuz basically came out with a Soyuz 2 some time ago, and it has like a digital flight computer. Woo! And what's
It's got
hilarious,
an Apple IIe on board, guys.
but what's hilarious about this is this was the first time that the vehicle was able to align with the azimuth, like in flight, which means where it goes up, it rolls, on its own using the digital flight computer, and then aligns itself along the trajectory. The old school Soyuz U and the Soyuz FG, which is how humans had been launching, they would physically turn the launch pad to align to the azimuth because it had an analog flight computer.
Oh, wow.
So this was the first time they actually launched on top of the 2.1, or the Soyuz 2 technically. So this was, I believe when it's being flown with humans, it's called 2.1A. And Chris Gephardt from NASASpaceflight.com did a nice rundown on this, but it's really cool. So basically, this is the clip that Chris Gephardt says, and I like this little clip. So, but as technology improved and other rockets became more capable, the Soyuz U began to show its age. Its computer systems were analog, severely restricting the upgrades possible on the rocket. Because of the analog flight control system, the rocket was incapable of rolling onto the correct azimuth after liftoff from its launch pad. Therefore, the launch pads themselves had to literally be turned and angled in the correct direction so the rocket could simply pitch over and be on the course of its intended orbit. And yeah, like I said, I have a video that I kind of dove way too deep into that, like I always do. And it's one of those fun topics, like why rockets roll on their, it's actually that's their z-axis. Mm-hmm. It's really quite fascinating. Yeah. So that's fun.
I don't think the Soyuz gets enough love. I mean, how reliable has that been over the years,
Mm-hmm.
Tried and true at this point.
It's the only way we have to get to space still, and it's just absolutely bonkers. But yeah, I actually dreamt last night. Maybe it's because I had it on in the background and I was like listening to it while I was sleeping. But I dreamt I was in this capsule, and then they like bring this big, scary, like rusty thing down over you, and like it was kind of like I was getting into this like Soyuz capsule thing, and I was scared because it was like old school.
So I saw also that it launched from Kazakhstan. So shout out to our friends from Kazakhstan. But does it still, when it separates, just land somewhere in Kazakhstan, like in a mountain?
Where else? Kazakhstan's got like thousands of kilometers of until it hits an ocean to the east.
So right now, when we launch from Soyuz, it goes up, goes over people, like millions of people, or
literally
however many people are there.
Literally hundreds, maybe, honestly.
Okay.
Because it's launching
and then
over
it just falls, the first stage just falls down back to Earth.
Yes.
The
first five.
Is there a field that's just like littered with debris from...
Yes.
Well, Tim's trying to go there, isn't he?
That's what I want. That's like what I want in life, is to go see Soyuz debris.
Take a metal detector with you.
No, you don't even need to do that. Look, I think I've shown you this before a while ago, but this is definitely like a dream of mine. It would be to go. I want Scott Manley and I to go on a trip where we look for remnants of rockets. Look at how cool that is. And people go and they find it and they scrap it.
I love that picture with the guy on the horse.
The picture with the guy and the horse.
Well, it was down there a second ago. I think you clicked away from it. But
is this?
I don't know. It was just that like dichotomy of like a rocket and then a guy on a horse next to it.
It's incredible when you see like farmers just hanging out and they just have these
there you go.
These boosters in their farmland. And
but, I mean, wouldn't there be hazardous chemicals in these?
I mean, a little.
Yeah.
I mean, rocket fuel.
Well, luckily the core stages are. I think the worst thing that would be in the core stage. And the boosters like that, let's see, because they run on RP1 and there's liquid oxygen, but those aren't like necessarily toxic. They use hydrogen peroxide on their for their gas generators, but I mean I don't think it'd be that toxic per se.
Okay. I would love to see if I had the latitude longitude of where every one of those are. I would just love to see like a map, and you could probably see patterns over time of like where it's going. Yeah,
absolutely. And like I said, I want to go see this. And our friend Anwar Beck, basically, I told him, like, dude, I want to see this, and he's like, I think I can make that happen.
Yeah.
So
stay tuned, folks, for a future Everyday Astronaut
travel
documentary.
Happens again.
10 parts, 10-hour series.
Yeah. The history of Kazakhstan, as told by Tim Dodd, the
God,
Everyday
you do
Astronaut.
not want that.
You're like, can I take this home?
There is a watch company that goes out and they bought one of these boosters and started making watch faceplates out of spent Soyuz boosters, and I want one so bad. I think
Is
that's,
that like
the coolest thing ever.
who was it, Euro Trip? You know, he like hands him a nickel, he like smacks him. You know, I'm buying my own hotel. It's like, yo, you want a booster? $10. All right, just really, just get that thing out of here. Okay, it's in my field. My sheep have been chewing on it.
Yeah,
I need
landed
it.
on
I
a
need it
cow.
Yeah,
gone. Right.
like Cuba. That actually
Oh
happened.
man.
We dropped a rocket on a cow once in Cuba. Seriously.
Because screw that cow in particular.
Yeah. We don't like this one. Yeah.
Very, very complicated strike that
Well,
occurred.
speaking of rockets falling out of the sky, this week, Rocket Lab released some footage of them working on practicing. They did this, by the way, like last month before the stay-at-home orders and stuff. But they've been working on recovering and grabbing their rocket boosters out of the sky using parachutes and a helicopter. And this is really, really cool footage. I'm just looking at the one on Twitter, on Rocket Lab's Twitter, but they have this posted already on YouTube. And so they've gone out and they've been practicing this, which is really, really exciting. And I love how they had to have like 3 helicopters for this, which helicopters are not cheap by the hour. So they've been spending some money.
They're catching a booster
Yeah, check this out.
with a helicopter.
Yes. Yes, they are.
And they caught it.
Yes. Yes. Well, so they've done 2 flights so far that have survived what they're coining as "quote unquote" the wall, because they're re-entering from space without doing any kind of propulsive landing, without doing any kind of extra slowdown methods to get through space. They're just letting they're keeping the booster lined up basically so that the engines are pointing perfectly straight. The Peter Beck basically has said like the only thing they get in trouble with is if that booster starts to like go angled, because then it the whole bow wave and the hypersonic like wave that comes off like the front of a booster while it's coming in is like the plasma knife, they call it, because it's like such a hot, insanely hot area. So what happens is if the booster kind of runs into one of those walls, almost like imagine a cone on the front of the rocket falling back from space. If the booster wall ends up touching that, it's gone, just disintegrates basically. So as long as they keep it aligned within that sharp little cone, it's made it through back from space twice so far on both attempts in what they assume is pretty good shape. And so on their, let's see, I think they've done 13 flights, and Peter said on their 17th flight will be the first one where they try to actually pull a chute. They won't try to recover it yet, but they will fish it out of the water. They'll see if they can get it down to the ground. But they were practicing the actual swooping it out of the sky method.
So describe that for people listening. What's happening here?
So once after the booster survives like initial reentry and gets kind of down into a little bit thicker parts of the atmosphere, at that point they'll pull first a balloon, like a giant drag chute. They didn't show that in this because that's a separate technology that they haven't really talked about too much. But basically they'll pull like a hypersonic balloon that'll get them down from through the hypersonic down to supersonic, and then once they're subsonic, they can pull the main like parafoil, and the parafoil then can steer itself just like the SpaceX's fairings, have a parafoil there. The difference is with the fairings, like they're so lightweight and so big, they have a lot of aerodynamic properties on their own, so it's really hard to steer that. This is way more akin to like a person, because it's just kind of a heavy,
It's just falling.
it's just a pretty
Cylinder.
a nice, fairly dense cylinder with a giant parafoil, and it can steer itself into the wind and provide like, I think Peter Beck told me in the last interview I had with him, like 20 minutes of hang time or something. Like they've got plenty of time to be able to, swoop it up with a helicopter. So the helicopter just goes by, grabs it, and then they'll set it down on the deck of a ship. And yeah,
It's amazing.
so they've actually been practicing it. So they've proven.
How tall is that booster? Because in that video, it looked pretty small.
They're really quite small. When you see an Electron, I mean, it's on its side. It's only 1.3 meters tall, so like 4 foot-ish tall. Let me see. I think altogether, I don't remember. I think it's only like.
But lengthwise, what is it, like 8 feet or something?
No, it's
2.5
bigger than
meters?
that. The length of the first stage. Hang on, let me see if I can find a picture just to give you guys a good reference here. Well, here's Peter Beck standing next to the Electron, and this helps you understand how small this thing is. It is a very small vehicle. That picture has 2 pixels in it, but the whole vehicle, I don't remember the exact dimensions. I've got it somewhere, of course, but it's not huge. I think the length of the booster is
like 3 meters. I mean, it looked tiny. In that
no,
video.
way more than, because if the width is 1.3, it's something like 8 meters or something.
Well, I wonder if that was just like a test thing, because it didn't look like a full stack.
You're right.
Yeah,
yes.
like it barely looked as tall as a helicopter.
Yeah. In real life, it is. Pretty.
That had me wondering if they were just saving like the bottom half of it for the engines or something. But
no, I think they're doing the whole thing. Here's
it might have just been a test.
So the whole entire rocket, just for future reference, is 17 meters long. I'm guessing that the core state or the booster would be, I don't know, 12 or 13 meters probably. So yeah, that's what, 35, 40
and a helicopter can just carry that. Like it has that much power.
It's so lightweight. You can literally, I've been on the factory floor pushing that entire booster around. Like I think it's like less than a ton.
Is it carbon fiber?
I think that's a good segue for you to do some more push-ups now.
You're right. Okay, I'll get down there. You guys find another news thing. Go ahead.
So let me hear about Sentry Mode. I want to hear about Sentry Mode. That's
pushing things around. How about pushing video files around in the new Tesla Sentry Mode? For people that are new, we are terrible at segues. All right, so my friend John Rettinger posted this video. This is a new update to Tesla software. And if you're unfamiliar with what Tesla Sentry Mode and Dashcam are, basically Sentry Mode, the car has 8 cameras. I think it runs 6 of them constantly as a security camera. So if people approach your car, do any damage to it, it records all of the cameras. And then the other one is Dashcam. So while you're driving, it also is recording. You have to have your own USB stick in there in order to do this. There's lots of companies that make different things for that. But the challenge has always been, how do you view that footage? Because it's actually an ungodly amount of clips. And so it kind of just became a big barrier to entry. Well, now you can view it directly from the car. And my friend John posted a little video in his Model 3 demoing this. So there's a button now that pops up under the where the actual camera thing is, and you can say save footage, which is, it automatically does that for an extent, and then it overwrites itself. And also you can click Launch Viewer. So now if you click Launch Viewer, it goes not full screen, but a large screen, and it shows you all of the cameras, or all 4 cameras that are recording, and you can just click between them, and it's kind of awesome. Like, it's extremely
okay. So that's in real time right there. So like he's actually pulling up what his cameras are getting right then.
No, he's getting. This is something that happened.
Okay.
Yeah, these are clips. Yeah. So you can now see and just flip around on, just easily tapping, and it goes full screen. It's actually
that's pretty so cool.
Yeah, from a user interface standpoint, it's, I think, very well done, and very cool. So
yeah, that's cooler than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, if you guys have Sentry Mode, if you've used it, this is an awesome way to do it.
Yeah.
I forget what version it is. Excuse me, what version of software it is, but it should be coming to you. It's on wide release, or it's hitting wide release very soon.
Sweet. So just for the people who are listening, because they can't really see what we're looking at here, so it is pulling up the video clip, but in every corner is a different camera that you can just touch, and it'll pull that shot up full screen. Not full screen, but in that window.
In the main screen, yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder then, when you get into the car, how sometimes it says like there's been 3 events, like Tesla or whatever, Sentry Mode events.
Yeah.
I wonder if now you'll just be able to click on that and see them right up, because I would love to do that right when I get in the car. Just make sure no one came up and peed on my car, or whatever, like some, catch some like interesting footage.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my biggest concern. Don't pee on my car.
And it's funny because so I don't have the update yet because, as I mentioned before the show, that I moved my Wi-Fi stuff around now that I have my home office. So I think my car is not on Wi-Fi. And also, we're not going anywhere. So things aren't happening. Yeah, that'd be cool. And even if not, it's just one press of a button and a different menu item. So not hard to get to. And one of the coolest things that I saw was shout out to Hummer to Tesla on Twitter here. Wait, did I just say Tesla wrong? I did.
100
So
push-ups.
he actually loaded his own footage onto this.
Oh, that's Positano.
Yeah, so he has like some drone footage from Positano in Italy, and he like just put it on his dash cam thing in the right file format, and now he can watch his own footage on there.
Of course.
So I could already see just
So you could
hacking
download
ability.
a YouTube video and save it on your thumb drive, and then put it in your car and watch YouTube in your car. Oh wait, you can actually just watch YouTube.
yeah. Or if there's other types of videos where multi-camera angles would be interesting, you could, if you formatted it properly,
That'd be
do that
cool.
here.
Booster
I didn't
cam.
see.
Oh, an exclusive booster cam. Oh,
Yeah, how cool would that
word.
be?
That'd be a cool Easter egg. Holy crap.
If you could like watch SpaceX launches.
Yes.
Now, they would have to send that footage to your car somehow. Yeah, it's a thing. You could start. It could be like mixtapes. If you guys are old like me and you remember where people would actually make mixtapes and sell them, right? Which for kids that don't know what that is, it's basically like a playlist that you couldn't change. So imagine, Tim, you could make like USB thumb drives of like every rocket launch ever, multicam, and you just pop it into your car, and now you can like full screen tap around and watch
That'd
rocket
be
launches.
Cool. That'd
Yeah.
be really cool. Huh. I should see, actually, that's a really good idea, because they're one of the most recent like CRS-20 launch, I think. NASA did release a booster cam, and it'd be fun to line it all up. They released a lot of their like shots from that launch and line it all up like that. That would be super cool. Okay.
You should do it, man.
do
Have you guys got the update yet?
I don't have any update yet.
I got some update last week, but it was just like minor fixes. It wasn't any.
It's funny, half the time these updates come, and our Model 3 is Jenny's car, so like she'll do the update, and then like it'll be something like this that's super cool that I totally want to check out, but she thinks it doesn't matter. She's like doesn't care, so she'll just dismiss it and then keep going. And then later I'm like, man, how come we're not getting that update? She's like, oh, I got that like 3 days ago. I'm just like,
I don't want to update my car.
No, okay, and a funny, so maybe a funny but sad thing that comes with this update as well, which may give you guys pause, is the HAL logo image from what is it, 2001: Space Odyssey, right? They got sued over that, and so they had to remove it.
Really?
Yeah. So now, on Sentry Mode, when you approach the car, it used to pop up and whatever. But now, yeah. So it's
Well,
a different
you know what?
logo
It's
now.
from Portal now, I think. I think they used the one from the video game Portal, which is, I assume, then they got permission from them, which is like,
They're gonna get sued again.
yeah, they just keep getting sued over and over. Like, we'll just use this one.
Yeah. They're like, I didn't like that one anyways.
Yeah, yeah. But I think
Put
that's
some celebrity's face up on there.
they just go between. That'd be great marketing for them, though. Like, it's just John Travolta, just burn.
Oh, they could play that clip from Taken of just Liam Neeson, like, I don't know who you are. I have a certain set of skills. I'm getting that wrong, I'm sure.
Super
was
loud.
thinking,
The windows
Home
roll
Alone.
down, so you
I will
hear it
find
really
you.
loud. That'd be hilarious if the windows would crack and you just hear a voice, like a man's voice. Even it's just like, I'm watching you.
Well, it does
Hey,
play
man,
the music, right? I forget what the song
I've never
is.
got
Oh,
to do
yeah,
that.
it was some classical song.
Da-da-da-da, or something, or is it?
Yeah.
I've never got
is
it
that
to do
Beethoven's
that. I've had people like shake the car before, and it's never got to that point.
Okay, well, what you have to do is break the window. So go outside when we're done here and just go break your car window and make sure Sentry Mode is on first, otherwise you won't be able to get it. I almost did that actually for a video.
I hear a metal ball does a really good job of that. Wah, wah.
Well,
Well, that makes me happy. I've been waiting on that update for a really long time, so I'm looking forward to that.
remember, like, it was about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, when we were sitting here arguing if whether or not Tesla or Sentry Mode was even possible because of the battery drainage. And then I realized that those like wireless cameras run on like for months on just a teeny little battery, and you were like, no, and I'm like, yeah, seriously. And we looked it up, and we thought it was gonna be like days, and it's like 2 months or something. It's like, yeah, cameras don't take too much power these days.
It does eat your phantom drain a ton, though.
Yeah, it does.
I mean,
it's probably less to do with the cameras and more to do with like all the other connectivity things, you know.
Well, just the sensors as well, detecting if things are happening. Yeah.
Am I the only person who's dumb enough that when my battery gets low in the car, like I start to plug my phone in, and then I'm like, I don't want to take any juice out of that battery. This phone could make all the difference.
I bet that would make
this tiny phone is going to drain my entire car.
Well, I have seen people do range tests. And especially when I do a range test and I don't care about that stuff because it honestly doesn't matter. And they're like, well, you had your phone plugged in. That's why it didn't get an extra 60 miles of distance. Like you're off your rocker if you think that it makes that big. Like the entire phone is like what 4,000 milliamp hours or something. Right. Like that would get you like 10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you could put wheels on your phone, it would carry you 60 miles or something.
Yeah. So let alone pushing around a whole car. Yeah. Well, speaking of
But that's just the dumb thing that pops into my head whenever I plug it in.
Speaking of pushing around things that are heavy, huh? No? Okay.
We're not even trying.
Nope, there's no attempt.
Got no idea.
Up next.
Yeah, last week, right basically when we ended, I was watching the serial number 3 Starship be pressurized and filled while we were filming last Thursday. And then last Thursday night, they were going for a cryo fill and pressure test. And unfortunately, as we're becoming pretty familiar with, we saw on the live cameras like Lab Padre and S Padre Cam, we saw the vehicle just kind of crumble into itself. Wah, wah. Another Starship prototype bites the dust.
Mm-hmm.
So Elon, what is happening here?
I wonder what's going to happen today as we're recording.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, yeah, and the production numbers literally came out 5 minutes after we recorded last week.
Yeah, yep. But the thing is, and I feel like I just might as well make a tape recording of myself. We'll go back to cassette tapes as we've been talking about. Might as well just make a recording of me saying this. These are just like, I mean, they're getting more and more high fidelity and more high quality prototypes, but like they're making these every 2 or 3 weeks. And yes, there's going to be failures. And that's the whole thing. I'm talking about this whole long video that I'm working on. And yes, guys, I still am working on it. Don't shoot me. But about how that philosophy allows them to have failures like this. You know, it's the Soviet Union way of doing things. Like back in the day, the design bureau was just like, build it and test it. I don't care if it breaks. If it breaks, we'll know what failed and then we know what to make better, you know? And that's literally what we're seeing them do. They're building, testing, and failing. And that's okay in the constraints that they're building in. And we did find out what was wrong. Elon said we will see a data review saying in the morning they think it was a test configuration mistake. And so then Pranay Pathole, and that was from Austin Bernard, had a tweet from this. So Elon was responding to Austin. And then Pranay said, Elon, it seemed like the CH4, so the methane tank, was filled and the LOX tank, which was not filled, collapsed because of the weight. And Elon said, pretty much, good news is that was a test configuration error rather than a design or build mistake. Not enough pressure in the LOX tank, and the LOX tank ullage is actually how I think you're supposed, I don't know, ullage, whatever, to maintain stability with a heavy load in the hydrogen in the methalox tank. This was done with, they pressurize these with liquid nitrogen. And I said, what keeps a pressurized rocket safe from decompression like that? Is there a way to have redundancy on valves without adding more failure points? Because, you know, it's like you imagine if you have a bunch of valves, right? And as like a redundancy, like, but what if one of those leaks? Like the more valves you add, the more chances you have for valves to leak, you know? So how do you add something like a valve to make it redundant when you need it to keep pressure, but you also need to make sure it bleeds? Like, is one the best thing? Because then it's like, you have lower chances of that one failing. You know what I mean? Because if any of them leak, it leads to the same depressurization. But Yeah. So Elon says if you lose pressure control on a rocket propellant tanks, you're doomed anyway. So in other words, if you're in space and you're trying to get to Mars and you lose pressure, even if it just slowly drains out and the vehicle doesn't like explode, you're doomed. Like it has to work. So he said you might as well go all in. In other words, like you have to nail this. And he said there are redundant pressure control valves. It's a new system, and serial number 3 was simply commanded wrong. Rockets are hard.
Interesting.
So
yeah, so did the test? Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but if I'm thinking, okay, let's design this test. Okay, cool. How will it work when it's actually on the launch pad and ready to go? Let's do it like that. Is there more to it than that? Is it like, oh, well, because of this type of thing, we're testing it this way, and is it harder to come up with this test configuration than just saying, do it how it should be done?
Well, I think some of it is like that it's literally new valves, like new types of cryo valves that they're using on these, like that they've never used before, and they might have a slightly different way that they program. And a lot of these valves they need to purge with nitrogen and do some of these things that make them so they work. So there's so many little things that go into just simply like the command line of open valve or closed valve. Like it's like do this, because when you're dealing with cryogenic temperatures too, metals start to do some really weird things, So it might be something like open this, close this, heat on, heat off, these weird like procedures, and all it takes is a command line wrong in that entire fill up process that would allow one of the valves to leak or something like that, and then depressurize. And because the top tank was filled, because don't forget that whole vehicle, even though it looks like one giant cylindrical body, there's 2 separate tanks in there. There's what will be the liquid oxygen tank, and there's what will be the liquid methane tank. And so the liquid oxygen tank was filled with liquid nitrogen, and the bottom tank was empty, and all of a sudden it needs to be filled and pressurized in order to maintain holding hundreds of tons of fuel. So bye serial number 3. They are going to be reusing some parts of it. Luckily, the whole bottom thrust structure, all that thrust puck looks like it's been throughout the past week has been kind of like cut back down. All the scrap removed from it. It looks like they're hoping to reuse a lot of parts from that. These aren't like huge setbacks. This in SpaceX world, this is maybe 3 weeks. So it's not. Well,
and it's to be expected. Like this is why you do
it. We do definitely want to see it fly. Yeah.
Hey, so sort of on the same topic, but going forward into the future quite a bit. I saw somebody ask a question somewhere, and I did not know the answer to this. But so it's got liquid methane, which is cryogenically cryoionized or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
yep.
How do you keep that cryogenically frozen all the way to Mars over like multiple months?
Yeah,
and back,
and liquid oxygen too. I mean, they're both, and liquid methane and liquid oxygen are in similar. They're similar temperatures. They're pretty close to the same temperature. Elon talked about this, and they'll be using a system called autogenous pressurization, and I still don't quite get it. But what they can do, especially with liquid, it works out really well with liquid methane and liquid oxygen, because when one boils off and gases out, you can use that to pressurize and backfill the other tank, and you can almost like use the pressure difference somehow between the two to like balance them out. And I don't remember, there's something else that they can do that maintains. Well, I think part of it is there also is the header tanks, which are separate tanks inside the big tanks, and those will always be filled. And because they're surrounded by a vacuum, it doesn't end up getting, or basically surrounded by a vacuum, it ends up like being very thermally stable. And you can maintain some of your heat flow by doing barbecue rolls on the vehicle too, so the tanks, don't end up getting like super hot. Space is weird. I don't get it at all. But heat flow is one of those things that I do not understand at all. But it sounds like outgassing and stuff like that for methane is a pretty relatively solved problem.
Okay, all right.
With
I didn't know if like it would require a lot of energy along the way, or if because space is cold and empty that would be what kind of keeps it.
Well, and pressure, the air pressure or whatever has a big deal or has a big impact on its state, right? From liquid to gas
correct.
or whatever.
Pressure, the whole. I'm gonna just totally butcher thermodynamics here, but it's insane that the relationship between pressure and temperature is just like is insane. And then temperature to heat, I always get those two things like mixed up. Like heat is the transfer of temperature. I don't know. I don't even want to speak out of my terms because that's still the stuff that I just don't even
just
like.
that whole thing about like water boiling in different temperatures and atmospheres and whatever. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's some bad news. You want some good news?
Yeah, I want some good news.
Do you want to hear some good news?
Yes. Can this be?
I'm
should I be
like
doing
John
push-ups
Krasinski with my
while
good
we're-
news.
Yeah, I love that. by the way.
now is that his new channel he created?
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
I think in the beginning, like the very first one was just a Facebook thing, and then he created a channel and got like 1.4 million subscribers
Overnight.
immediately. Like,
Yeah.
overnight, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're him. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I mean, like before we jump into what I was going to say, that's an interesting topic because, like, I'm of multiple minds about this. Like, you're seeing all these late night hosts now having to basically do vlogs, like they're all just YouTubers
And
now.
they're
Basically,
terrible at it.
they are. And Seth Meyers did a bit where he actually kind of was basically saying, like, I have a newfound respect for YouTubers because this is a lot harder than people think. He was like, I had to stop recording because a bird wouldn't shut up outside my window the other day.
Yeah.
You know, he's not used to
You're
not
not on a
having a giant
soundstage.
studio and a whole team of people running everything for him. So that's kind of interesting. But here's where I'm of multiple minds on it. And I know this is a bit of a tangent, but we're all YouTubers, so here we go.
What we do.
On one hand, it can feel a little disheartening that somebody that's a huge celebrity is now kind of jumping on our platform and getting millions of viewers like immediately and kind of sucking all the air out of the room. It feels a little bit like that. But on the other hand, first of all, I totally admire John Krasinski for just wanting to do creative and fun stuff and putting some positivity out there while he's, unable to work. I think that's very admirable, and I like the guy. And he's super talented, so of course I feel intimidated. But the other side is I feel kind of like it's legitimizing the YouTube aesthetic a little bit. By seeing all these like major people doing the same thing, and it's kind of like, oh, you can actually put out good content in this format and in this way, and there's other people that have been doing it for far longer than these guys have, and frankly are a little better at it.
Well, it's normalizing and becoming a new norm for people, where people are realizing that, like, oh, YouTube is just a platform. It's not like a, I think there's a stigma for so long that it's just like kids doing like silly things or whatever, like just the total vlog aspect. But people forget, like, no, these days we can have high production value on YouTube. We can have as high a production value as a studio because of the wonders of technology these days,
If you look at all these
out the window.
If you look at all these tech YouTubers, shooting an 8K raw video, like the exact same cameras that they film movies on.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I mean, it's obviously overkill, but if you look at it, you go, yeah, this is as good of quality as you could imagine. The thing I think you can generally tell or get the sense of is just the producing of it. I feel like, we all have a very strong hand in the work that we put out in terms of how it looks, how it feels, all those kind of things. Whereas, if you're Seth Meyers or Jimmy Fallon or somebody, you are like the talent and the face of the thing, but there is like a giant team of people that decided the brand colors and those things. And so it's a bit removed from the show. But here it's like the person in the show are the same thing. So I think you can tell all that, and this he's not obviously the first one. I think the first big celebrity I remember was Will Smith coming on. And when he first started, it was the best thing ever because he's Will Smith, right? So obviously he has a crazy life, and he is just a wild, funny person. Like, did you guys ever see outtakes of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Yeah, I've seen
like
some.
It's like funnier than the show.
Yeah,
just because of who he is. And then ironically, his YouTube channel became extremely produced,
right?
To where you clearly have like professional, like, feature film directors and people getting involved, and it kind of sucks now. And then Jack Black, I absolutely love his. So, I think it's really cool. I agree. If anything, I just feel better about, look, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is probably more of a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. Like if these guys are bringing more people to YouTube, that's just more eyeballs for us.
I think I would love to see the actual overall analytics of YouTube's traffic since
I bet it's going up
since everything, because I think like that's one of those things is we're kind of like the disruptor industry in a sense that like we can continue doing everything we normally do, basically. Sans like maybe going and traveling, shooting some stuff like, but all these other, you know, big productions had to halt production, had to, you know, strip away. And now they're struggling to do Zoom meetings and do things that like our community's been doing for so long. Like this is normal for us. And I'm watching all these like big news stations struggling so hard to like do a Zoom meeting to interview someone, and it's horrible. And it's like, you guys, like, come on. We've had to be plucky about it for so long that we've got used to it, you know? And yeah, it's funny.
Maybe coronavirus was invented by a YouTuber. just to gain a foothold.
So speaking of good news,
theory.
Hit us with it.
Yeah, I'm going to do push-ups.
Some good news. And actually sort of on that same similar-ish topic. So we've been dealing with a virus going around the world. The Democratic Republic of Congo has been dealing with a virus for the last couple of years called Ebola.
Where have I heard that before?
Ebola. So they've been dealing with an outbreak, and it looks like on April 12th, the World Health Organization is going to announce that it is over. That they are finally declaring the outbreak of Ebola in the Congo over.
So they like put out a press release to put out a press release?
I guess
is that what this is?
Well, this is from New Scientist, so I don't know where exactly they got it from. But now the irony here is that it's probably on here somewhere, but they wanted to do a big celebration because this has been ravaging their country for a couple of years now. And it says here, like, 3,400 people were infected and 66% died. I mean, like, Ebola is nothing to mess with. Luckily, it's only transferred by, contact with blood. But no, they were going to do a big celebration, but of course they can't do that because of coronavirus. So, yeah, here's right here. Said Perso. Esther Sokolua Perso has led the center's medical team since 2019. Anyway, she said, we have achieved a great success working together as a machine, says Perso, who had to cancel a ceremony marking the end of Ebola due to the coronavirus. I don't mean to laugh about that, but that's some irony right there.
Yeah.
But that's some good news.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we need that.
Worth sharing.
Yeah. I like good news, and I like the idea of the scary, horrifying viruses being eradicated. That's some good news. Yeah.
Now, I had that conversation kind of at the beginning of this whole thing with David Quammen, the guy who wrote a book on Ebola outbreaks. Oh, yeah. And he was in the Congo with National Geographic, kind of following all this stuff. Ebola came from infected gorillas. And I think chimpanzees. I think somebody ate an infected chimpanzee. They call it bush meat in that part of the world. But so it's probably gone. And one of the things about Ebola that makes it so difficult is that it kills people so quickly. It's almost it sounds terrible. It's almost a good thing,
right? Because
it kills people so fast that they can't spread it to other people as easily as, say, what we're dealing with today. But so this outbreak looks like has been squashed. That does not mean it will never come back, because there's reservoir hosts like chimpanzees that it will probably go back into and could, jump the gap again someday. So not trying to end it on a down note there, but that's where it came from. And there have been multiple outbreaks for that reason.
Of all the difficult things going on in the Congo, hopefully this is a bright spot.
Yeah.
Compared to all the other. Now, do we have a Why Don't They Just for this week?
We do, but I think before we jump into that, let's give a little information to people who might want to join us on Patreon and become a part of our recording, because we got people down here in Discord that are sharing with us as we talk.
Yeah, actually, I think this week's Why Don't They Just came from our Discord channel?
It usually does nowadays, yeah.
It tends to do that. But yeah, we have an editor, and we have some people that have to make the show happen every week on behalf of us, and so that's all thanks to Patreon. Hopefully our show keeps getting better and better. And if you guys want to help support us or any of your favorite creators, I know right now might not be the best time if you're having a hard time paying some bills.
Yeah.
Don't worry about us, but like it definitely helps, and we've always been appreciative of all the support that we get. So yeah, we wouldn't be doing this stuff without you guys and without you guys listening. So yeah.
Shout out to
I
you
always
guys.
have to preface that and say, like, if you can do it,
Yeah.
right now, I know times are tough for people, so don't,
Yep.
take care of yourselves.
So
Cool. Well, hit us with it. What do we got? I'm going to start a Patreon to kill that music.
All
Maybe
right,
I'll
this
remake
week's
it.
Why Don't They Just comes from Andrew Kaler, who says, why don't they just make full self-driving and autopilot features free or cheaper for really young or really old or some accessibility needs people? Perhaps this could be facilitated through paired keys and Tesla car insurance. I thought this was an interesting question.
It's a really cool question, actually. I'll start with I think that's a great idea. I think allowing for some additional, like, almost in a sense, public safety things, things that could help the general public for certain high-risk drivers or something like that, especially, I definitely think there should be, I think there is like a kid mode already, but, or at least a way for an adult to be able to like limit the car a little bit. But I think if as the software improves, doing certain things like that for certain drivers that could use it would be good. Right now, though, I feel like after having driven with 3 days, I basically let my dad drive the full way back from Florida. It still confuses him, autopilot, like when it's doing something that it's supposed to be doing, when it's not, when it's like, sometimes I'll just like forget that it's not on yet, and all of a sudden I'll just be like, I'm like, Dad, it's not on. Like, or like it'll be beeping at him and he'll just be like, I don't know, like there's some kind of disconnect.
What's it doing?
Yeah.
What's that sound?
Like, I know for us that have like driven the car a ton and are used to how autopilot does its things, it's pretty natural and it's a pretty easy thing. But for someone that's unfamiliar, especially, and my dad's a smart guy, he's a techie guy, still kind of would sometimes throw him some loops where it was questionable safety. So I would like to see it definitely ironed out a little more before it's just like rolled out as a solution to help, maybe elderly drivers drive safer, because I think for now it'd be just confusing. That's my
What do you
thought.
think, Joe?
I think the Model 3 in general is confusing to somebody who hasn't been in one.
Yeah.
What, you press a button on the end of the stalk to park it? What?
I don't turn it off when I get out of the car.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and so, I mean, obviously they have to get full self-driving to a certain point before they can open it up for anybody, regardless of accessibility or age or whatever. And they're not quite there yet. So, but I do think that would be a good sort of first use case for it. I think a lot of technologies are kind of started by helping out people with disabilities or accessibility needs, whatever the right term is these days.
Like Neuralink.
Right, exactly, yeah. It kind of starts there, and then it kind of filters out to the rest of us. So if you want it early, just, have a spinal injury, and then there you go.
Jeez. Ben, what are your
Get creative.
He's not wrong. Yeah, so the kid mode thing, that there is all I'm aware of is a speed limiter. You can set kind of like a valet mode where you can't change the settings and you can limit the top speed.
Does that limit acceleration though? Like, can you still just
you can put it in chill mode.
Oh, okay.
I think if you put it in chill mode and put the speed limiter on and then put valet mode on,
They can't change it.
I
think you're right,
I haven't
because
tested that.
I
but
think you're right, because
that's-
I picked up, I borrowed that Model X in Florida about a year ago, actually, almost exactly. And when I got it had chill mode and valet mode and like speed limit of like 75.
Yeah.
And so I like texted the guys like, hey, like, I'm a responsible driver.
Can you take it out of valet mode?
It's slow in chill mode, like almost like
It's like a regular car. It's
Yeah,
like
it
a
is.
regular gas car. It's how
it
it
feels
feels.
almost like dangerous though, because like you forget like, oh, I can't just zip through this intersection or get around this car quick or whatever. You get
Honestly,
so used to
that is how I feel when I get in a normal ice car.
It's scary.
now. I mean, I'm not just trying to bag on ice cars, but like seriously, like the last time I rented an ice car and I got on the road, it was just like I felt like I was in danger. Like somebody's gonna run over me.
Yeah.
Because I can't just get up to speed.
I like this idea. I don't know if I think the notion. I mean, so Okay, just to level set, when you buy any Tesla right now new, it comes with autopilot. You can't buy it without autopilot. So if the question is then, what about full self-driving? Like today, I don't think that would make any sense because the added features for full self-driving aren't as like the delta between no autopilot and having autopilot, the basic version, and autopilot, the basic version plus FSD, I would say is incremental. You know, it's basically navigate on autopilot with the auto like lane change thing is the only like noticeable difference I would say. You have smart summon, but that's no, like I'm not calling that a huge benefit. And then the park assist, which I guess maybe you don't get automatic parking without the FSD upgrade now. So, but still, like just having autopilot alone, which you get with every single Tesla, I think is a huge help in this regard. Making it simpler, like I do think, and maybe they have this now, but having video tutorials in the car, you know, almost like when you open a new app and it's like, hey, now click here. Now click here, and it like waits for you to do it. That would be kind of useful, I think, if they could have some sort of like autopilot simulator to walk people through it more. Because, like you were saying, like when do you? And I even remember when I got, because my original Model S did not have autopilot or anything, and then I had a Model 3, and then I got a Model X that did have autopilot, and I'm like, wait, how do I enable it? Because it's not the same.
It's different.
And then how do you adjust the follow distance? So I think like there could be better things there, but in terms of the capabilities, I don't know if this concept makes sense right now. If we're talking in the future where cars are completely self-driving, I think it'll be a completely different model then anyways, and we might not even own cars.
Right.
You know. So who knows? It would be cool if there was a way to. I like the sentiment, but I just don't think the reality of it matches that notion right now.
I think by the time it's truly a full self-driving thing, like they'll just have it, and maybe they could be discounted though. Maybe if that's an option, still like a $10,000 option, full self-driving. Hey, if you're elderly or disabled, blah blah, a $2,000 option or something cool like that would make sense. But until it's to that point of being totally feature complete, I think you're absolutely right.
You know what, though? I think that will also be a really great, for lack of a better term, PR stunt. Maybe I shouldn't use the word stunt, but it would really be good for PR to be able to say, like, we're giving people the ability to get around, and we're giving it to them for free or for, discounted or whatever.
Agreed.
And Tesla does that stuff kind of right when there was like hurricanes in Florida and it was your software locked on your battery. They just enabled that. So yeah. I mean, I like the sentiment. I think the technology and reality aren't there to match that right now, but down the road, maybe that'll be.
Or even how they give like free supercharging miles, for people like trying to clear out of like wildfires and hurricanes and stuff. And like that's the easiest PR move they could ever do. A car company car companies can't give you free gas. Like they'd have to ship you a gift card or something, and be like, here you go, we gave you $20 so you can get out of the hurricane, or whatever. Like, but this is just super easy. Just go, you, everyone in this area, free supercharging. Go. Easy.
I wonder if there'll be like a movie pass thing, but for gas, where you just pay a monthly service fee to it, and then you get unlimited gas wherever you go.
Might get down to that.
Sounds like it'd be a bad model.
Sort of on a similar topic, but I wanted to ask. I saw Doug DeMuro's video on the Model Y. It was just kind of on in the background yesterday, but I noticed that on that one, he was showing the visualization of autopilot on the screen, and it is showing the stoplights and the lane markings and stuff, or the turn signals and stuff like that. Like, what is that? Like, is that some new?
I have that.
You have that?
Yeah, because I have full self-driving. I remember I got the hardware 3 chip.
You have to have full self-driving.
Yep, so you have to have full self-driving. That's the thing you guys said was, I'm not going to get. And I'm like, I'm going to get it. And you're like, have fun in 3 years. And I'm like, I'll have fun in 1 year.
So this is from out of Spec Motoring, who's Kyle.
Tim, I think you need to do some more push-ups.
This is my time. I've
just
done
for that
gloating.
attitude.
I've done too much gloating. Push up, boy.
So Kyle at Out of Spec Motoring, who, if you guys haven't heard of his channel, I really like it. Showed this. So Joe, I don't know, have you seen this? But he has apparently a newer version than the rest of us somehow. It'll actually stop at stoplights now.
Wow.
And this is something they reported they would have, but you can see that there's actually a notice here, and it stops for stop signs. So in fact, what's happening is, as it's getting closer to full self-driving, and it's actually in the rain too, which is kind of cool. So that's coming. They said that would be out in a year or so, where you could essentially drive it on city streets. Now, I'm very interested in this, having the car, detect streets and stop at stoplights in a place like Las Vegas, where there are blinking and buzzing lights everywhere. The cameras could do it if they knew how to focus properly and what to look for, which is in theory. But see, look at that, stopping at traffic control, 30 feet. So it's actually stopping at this light on its own.
And there's a red background there. I wonder how standardized the light colors are in traffic lights. Like, is there a specific wavelength that it would be able to pick up on and say that's definitely a red light?
Well, from a machine learning, from a computer vision standpoint, I imagine what's happened is, we've all been driving our cars and stopping at these things, and it probably took a team of 20 people a couple days just to go in and say, well, that's a light, that's a light, that's a light. But like in Tejas over there, your lights are sideways, right?
A lot of times
they go both ways.
Yeah, it's Texas. They go both ways. That's the state.
We're biliteral.
Yeah, there you go. So things like that would be a bit different, right? And so, but clearly they have tons of data on this already. And plus, we've been programming the cars to stop at these locations because we stop ourselves, right? So we're kind of training the algorithms. I wouldn't be shocked if that starts to roll out on wide release sooner.
For instance, I haven't been driving my car. I've probably only driven it like 20 times since I got the update anyway, because I'm not really going anywhere lately. But I was driving it just the other day, and I noticed it puts that line on the road of where it basically needs to stop, and it'll do that without a line there. Like, I was stopped at a stoplight, and I'm looking, I'm like, there's no visible line at all. Like, I can't see it with my eyes, and the car determined based on again, machine learning, like, it has a sense of this is where people are stopping due to X, Y, and Z, and it triangulates where the line should be and kind of paints its own line on the road. And it's using that as a reference of like, here's where you should stop. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's working. It's working. The whole machine learning, learning how to drive instead of telling it how to drive is absolutely working.
Now the opposite side of that is that there is a downside. Did you guys see this? This guy created traffic jams on Google.
Well, I see a cool ad.
Oh, I love the ad blocker thing.
Yeah. He created traffic jams at Google by wheeling around 99 smartphones in a wagon.
Oh my god.
Oh, I have heard of people doing that, yeah.
No.
So this guy literally has like a radio flyer wagon, and he's dragging it around. And because of how Google Maps works, it created
no way. So that way a route around
was he doing that
street?
just to see what would happen, or was he like specifically trying to get Google to route people away from that street?
No, he's I think he's a performance artist or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And this was intentional for him to to do exactly what he did, to create.
That's kind of crazy.
That's like when this is dating myself, but if you remember, Sony put out DRM, digital rights management stuff, on their CDs back in the day, so you couldn't copy them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you wanted to copy a CD and give it to your buddy, you couldn't do that because they somehow programmed in this thing. And like a 9-year-old figured out that there was like an on the bottom of the CD where the actual like music was, there was like a little new weird little colored strip around the edge. And so he just took a Sharpie and like colored it out, and then he could copy the CD.
No way.
So it was like probably like I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of research and stuff and testing to go into how to do this, and a 9-year-old with a Sharpie, like one afternoon, just like, just wipes all that away.
That's hilarious. Wow. Well,
So
Speaking of 9-year-olds and moon mining,
oh,
9-year-olds with Sharpies drawing maps.
oh. So get this. We actually have a executive order that it's an executive order to encourage international support for the recovery and use of space resources. Now, I need to tiptoe around this a little bit because this is well outside of my jurisdiction. Anything. I'm not a lawyer, but basically, we had a moon agreement in 1979 where we kind of agreed that like the moon and other celestial bodies that established some like frameworks so that people don't just go and mine those resources or whatever, kind of, or like I think it's more a matter of not turning it into a territory.
yeah,
I think is the biggest sentiment that it's trying to do. But there's kind of been like this agreement basically not to like go and just use all the resources on other planetary bodies and other celestial bodies, I think. But basically, the White House just gave out an executive order in encouraging of the upcoming lunar missions that, hey, we do want you guys to actually be able to, mine resources, to use regolith, to do in situ resource utilization. Pretty awesome, honestly. Like, in my opinion, like if you have the resources and you can get yourself to the moon and you like have that capability, like, of course, let's open up the economy there. That's absolutely awesome in my opinion. So, speaking of going to the moon, we're starting to see more and more contracts come out, and this kind of lines up well with everything we've been talking about. But one of my favorite little companies, Mast in Space, which is just this very plucky company that's made some incredible, like their Morpheus lander system. They've been able to do like propulsive landings, things like going up, cutting the engine, kicking the engine back on, doing like totally wacky maneuvers. They're kind of like, in my opinion, they're like the kings of propulsive landing and maneuvering. They've been doing some things out in Mojave in California that make SpaceX blush probably. But they got a contract to be able to send this little, it's kind of a science platform to the south pole of the moon in 2022. And it's going to be carrying 9 different science data gathering things on 8 different instruments. And so these will be technologies that they're going to kind of test out and make sure are good for, the upcoming Artemis program. So things like using cameras to make, for helping to aid in landing, and like mass spectrometer, near infrared volatile, like all these really cool science instruments. They got I think they're the 3rd signed contract now to be able to, like, commercial partner to be able to go land on the moon and work with other companies. But here's what's nuts. How much would you think to send a platform like this to the moon? How much do you think they're getting paid to do that, including the rocket to get them there?
$80 billion.
Okay. Joe?
I assume you're going low. Let's say 20 million.
Whoa. With a rocket?
I'm going way low.
You went very low.
I'm going Boeing level here. Okay.
I'm the guy on The Price is Right that just says $1.
$1, Bob. I was shocked. It came in under 100 million. They got a contract for 75.9 million. But we don't necessarily know how big this is, so I don't know if this can be something that's it is probably pretty small. So it might be able to be launched as a ride share with another satellite, with a Falcon 9 they could just purchase a ride for along with another satellite for, I'm going to make up a number, like 10 million or something. Or maybe this is small. I doubt this is small enough that an Electron could fly it. I have no idea, though. I don't know the size of this thing. So who knows what vehicle they'll launch on? They did not disclose that yet. But the fact that we can get a probe to the south pole of the moon for $7.5 million, like $75 million, not 7.5, sorry, $75 million. That's honestly pretty incredible and a really exciting prospect for going forward and exploring the moon.
I mean, how much does the stand cost, though? Because
well, hopefully it doesn't cost nearly $1 billion like the mobile launch tower for less. So isn't that nuts? We can send something to the freaking moon for less than a tenth the cost, for 10% that of making a tower to send something to the moon.
It's like half of the first flight of stairs.
Yeah, we'd get just the platform, probably, like, maybe.
Tim, about that, did Elon give you an answer on how Starship is going to land on the moon?
Yeah, he gave me what I don't think is a very good answer, in my opinion.
Fall was the answer.
Basically, yeah. Let me see if I can pull this up. I wasn't necessarily going to talk about it because there's more something I was going to talk about in my video. I still have my doubts. But let me share this with you guys. So I'm, working on a video of whether or not Starship can be used for the Artemis program in any way, shape, or form. And I asked, how will Starship land on the moon? 3 Raptors at minimum throttle is around, and I missed a 0. Of course, it's technically would be 3 meganewtons or 3,000 kilonewtons. A Starship full of fuel is basically 2,158 tons on the moon. So that's a thrust to weight ratio of 1.5. So that means, like, if somehow it could land full, which it's not, like, you can't land a rocket full. You know what I mean? To get there, it's going to take some fuel, and then to land, it's going to burn fuel. So you're not landing on the surface of the moon full. If it's half full, because it, is now half the weight, the thrust to weight ratio would be 2.7 to 1 to land on the moon with 3 engines, which they kind of, I think, would have to do. If they go to just a single Raptor, there would be because the 3 engines aren't quite in the center of the rocket, they probably could land on one and have it be a little bit, just kind of land a little crooked and let the gimbal do that, and then it lands on one, whatever. They could do that, but then you don't have any redundancy. And if you're relying on, the Raptor engines to land your crew safely on the surface of the moon, I would think you'd want some big margins in, like, throttle ability, not have to do this crazy suicide burn or hover slam. And Elon's answer was, aim for 0 velocity just above the surface and fall. You won't fall fast. And I mean, he's not wrong. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong about that, but it brings up the whole question of, like, redundancy. If you have a 3-to-1 thrust to weight ratio, your window of time, and, like, if you mess up where you start throttling up and things like that, like, you just have no room for error. And if you're, 250,000 miles away from the surface of the Earth, you kind of want some redundancy and some...
There's a bit of a delay then at that point, right?
Oh, you won't be flying it like that. The computer will have onboard control systems and radar and LiDAR and things like that. So it'll be flying itself. Of course, now the Apollo missions didn't have a redundant engine to land on either, but they did have the option of, like, aborting and firing up their ascent engine instantly. Raptor takes a bit to spool up. It's not just going, if something's going wrong and you only have this little threshold to be able to land on, and all of a sudden, you have to fire up another Raptor to solve it. Like, there's like a 2-3 second lag there probably, or a certain amount of lag, like at least a second-ish or whatever. And so you can't really rely on, like, oh crap, like, fire up the engines, or whatever, like, get us out of here. I don't know. So I'd just be very curious. What that's not even the biggest problem of it landing to me, but we've talked about that with, like, the landing platform that will likely be necessary. But I don't know. I mean, I don't doubt that someday the picture that I showed you with, starships landing on the moon absolutely can and will happen. I'm just very, very, very curious about that situation.
Why don't they just use parachutes?
Wow. There you go.
Oh, silly Joe.
I mean, it works here.
But speaking of Raptors, we got some new pictures of some sexy Raptors from the man himself.
Jurassic World.
Oh. So check this out. Elon just casually shared a picture of, which I don't know how this is not ITAR restricted anymore. Like, we used to not be able to show, like, plumbing and all the intricacies of engines, and now there's just like, well, here you go. Here's everything.
He's like, well, what are they going to do? Sue me? Okay, how much is it going to cost me? All right, cool.
It's insane. Honestly, ITAR like, fines are millions of dollars.
Worth it.
But it's just crazy that he's just casually showing off their engines. And I got really confused. And looking back at it now as a photographer, I should have definitely understood this a little better. But it looks like they're variants. Like, the middle one looks substantially smaller than the other ones. And it is just likely from the super wide angle lens on the, like, an iPhone Pro, which has a 20 millimeter equivalent. Now, it is still rectilinear. So the lines are all straight. It doesn't have that fisheye effect, but that still doesn't mean that the edges and the corners don't get warped and
Yeah. If you look at the engine bells on the bottom left and
exactly.
right corners, it's definitely
Yep. They get kind of wonked out. And then the other thing it just looked like the center one was so much skinnier. And I think it's literally just because it's turned at an angle that is a little skinnier, where the turbo pump machinery is a little bit more lined up with the camera, and the other ones just are at angles because you can tell they're all rotated at different angles, especially if you look at like that big shiny center pipe that's off to like a 45-degree angle. You can kind of tell which part is lined up with the camera. And the ones on the sides are just kind of lined up in a way that the bundle of wires and all that and the little valves and pipes are like way more on one side. But it's cool to see 3 fully functioning Raptors ready to go. I just think this is awesome that we're just seeing this stuff and that they're getting this far along to the point where they're over 20 serial numbers of Raptor. They're just cranking these babies out now.
Now, what is the big orb thing in the background that matches exactly what Bob Lazar described?
I was going to mention exactly that. That is the header tank. So what's cool, Elon somewhere in here shared also a picture of the header tank, which it fits in there a little different than we thought. And the header tank it's basically a baby tank inside the big tank, and that prevents sloshing. Here we go. So we're looking down. This is the bulkhead. This is the thing in between the 2 fuel tanks. You have that kind of round dome, and that separates the liquid oxygen and the liquid methane. And this is that basically they cut out a circle inside, and it's kind of a squiggly circle like a tutu. So there's a tutu on this tank, and that allows for more welding surface area. If you squiggle it like that, it allows for more room to weld, to make a stronger weld. And so now all of a sudden the sphere is sitting inside of the dome. So you don't have, imagine if it was sitting on top of the dome, you'd still have all the surface area of the sphere and all the surface area of the dome, right? So all that metal. If you literally cut out a circle in the dome and place the sphere inside the dome, you save on mass. And so that's exactly what they've done. And then the header tank inside there, it will always be full until landing. And then at landing, because it's full, it won't ever have fuel sloshed around. So the engines, even if the rocket's sideways or horizontal in the belly flop maneuver, it won't slosh. The fuel will be full and pressurized in there. So even if it's at an angle, the engines can start firing up and pull fuel from those smaller tanks, these header tanks, without ingesting a bubble, which is vital because otherwise they go boomy. So sorry, that was a super long rant on what header tanks are. That's probably one of those good little clips for our highlights show, huh? Editor Ben? Mark that one down. Make a little clip of what are SpaceX header tanks? Yeah.
Well, speaking of aliens, Joe, is it possible that there is more to this universe than what we know?
Y'all ready for some mind blow?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I say, are you ready for some mind blow?
Yeah.
Hit me with the Big Daddy.
What?
All right. So, according to an article in New Scientist, we may have some evidence for a parallel universe. And I didn't get a chance to really study this article, so I'm just going to kind of give you the highlights. But basically, in the Antarctic, we have all these bases down there, and they're always doing science stuff, and there's neutrino detectors and whatnot. And in 2016, they had an experiment that they did that was called the ANITA experiment. Yeah, Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna. And it was like a hot air balloon or a weather balloon kind of thing. They put it up in the sky to try to catch cosmic rays, high energy cosmic rays, neutrinos, and that kind of thing. Well, they caught a high energy cosmic ray. Problem is, it wasn't coming from above, it was coming from below. It was coming up from the ground. And they came up with all kinds of crazy ideas to try to explain this because neutrinos can kind of pass through everything, but high energy cosmic rays cannot. This would have collided and shattered into all kinds of other little particles and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, many different ideas that they've come up with to try to explain this. Right here it says, no known physics can account for the perplexing signal that they picked up on. And
it wasn't like someone at the base station with the microwave going.
Nothing's going to create some high energy cosmic rays unless they've got really, really strong microwaves down there. But the theory that they're advocating in this story here is that it was actually a particle traveling backwards in time from a parallel universe that is traveling backwards in time from our own.
What?
So like in that universe, everything just works in reverse.
Yes, exactly.
We all just walk backwards
Yeah.
and like undo keystrokes on your computer.
It's
You see
it's all the delete key.
Yeah, you're right.
So here, let me explain a theory that I've had for a while. And I'm sure there's some astrophysicists out there that are going to be screaming at this, and that's perfectly fine. So I've covered antimatter on videos before. And one of the theories on antimatter... Okay, so at the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, all of this matter was created, and it should have, according to theoretical physics and the standard model and our interpretation of it all, it should have created both particles and antiparticles, like in the same measure. Mm-hmm. And the theory is that there was a slight asymmetry there. Maybe for every billion antiparticles, there were 1,000,000,001 normal particles, and they all annihilated each other, and what's left over is what we see now. So so technically the universe is only 1/1,000,000,000th of what was actually created in the Big Bang, according to that theory. Another theory is that antimatter is basically regular matter going backwards in time.
Whoa.
And so this theory would basically say that at the Big Bang, there were equal parts matter and antimatter, only they went in two different time directions.
Whoa. Into like two different universes, basically.
Right.
Whoa.
And so, I mean, if you were to have a linear timeline, then one universe would travel out this way and one universe would travel out that way. Of course, the universe is not on a linear timeline. It's all 3D. So it's basically you can imagine like two bubbles of universes expanding out. You could color one blue and one red if you want to kind of help, understand it a little bit better. But there's two universes expanding out, going through time. Only one of them is sort of backwards in time, and we're forwards in time.
Weird.
Which one are we?
Well, to the other universe, we're going backwards in time.
How would we know?
We don't know. And so, I mean, that's the theory that they're going with on this to explain how these cosmic rays, because this happened twice now, they caught one in 2016 and one in 2018, is the idea that instead of thinking of it as coming out of the ground, it was actually going into the ground like normal in this other universe, but we sort of caught it. So to us, it looks like it's coming out of the ground.
Jeez.
That's wild.
My brain, that's insane.
Yeah.
Have you seen the thing where you can... the science experiment where you can see cosmic rays? It has to do with like dry ice, and you have to make the room really dark, and you get dry ice, and it creates like a fog, and eventually you'll see like little like things going through it.
Well, so they have that with uranium and radioactive material. I forget what it's called. It does have a name, but you're right. It's almost like dry ice fog, and you can see little coming off of uranium. It's actually it's bananas. I love it.
When the radiation
it's so cool.
like hits, when it hits something, it probably makes a little like spark almost or whatever.
Well, the
you can
cosmic...
just it almost looks like a gunshot through smoke or something. It's kind of like Here, let me find it. Y'all talk. I'll find something.
Because cosmic rays, right? The way it works is it hits all the stuff that our planet has, like the whatever atmosphere, magnetosphere, air, all those things, and they don't get through generally, but they create particles. They push all the other particles down. So you're seeing like the remnants of the cosmic rays hitting and causing other things.
That's wild.
Yeah, and it's like we can talk about all this stuff, and it's like ha ha ha. But then when you see it, you're like, what is happening? Like,
yeah,
it's super super.
Yeah,
bizarre.
here, let me show this.
Yeah, show me, because I think
NPR did a whole
looking.
thing on it, because that was where the cosmic rays were blamed. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Now this is
50 minutes of this.
Oh my
like you can just put this on your screen in the background while you're working and just
do this
enjoy.
to some like lo-fi beats.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That's cool.
Don't think I won't. So it says
Joe's new
emanating
favorite
alcohol vapors fill the whole volume of the container until they reach the bottom of the chamber, maintained to a very cold temperature, -40 degrees Celsius. Is this?
And this is from uranium, or is this just the
that's what I'm looking
cosmic ray
for.
thing?
Yeah, it doesn't. Let's find out this radioactive.
Oh, it's Oh wait, Cloudy Labs or Cody's Lab? Oh, it is
Cloudy Labs.
Interesting.
Yes, that's their
Okay.
YouTube channel. I don't see what this is. Wait, okay. So this video shows the Cloudy Labs cloud chamber running for approximately 50 minutes with a uranium mineral. Okay, so it's uranium. Yeah.
Okay, that is insane.
But isn't that crazy looking?
I've never seen that. Wow.
So like any radioactive substance, you can't see these things happening, but that's what's actually happening.
Wow.
This stuff
That's
is
scary,
flying off
and that's
of
the
it.
stuff that micro bullets that just go through you and kill you, basically.
Well, it warps your DNA enough to kill you.
Yeah. Splices your DNA, and then your DNA is like, I'm a fish now.
Suddenly you have gills in your neck like Kevin Costner in Waterworld.
Speaking of Kevin Costner, Waterworld, and gills, Boeing will have to refly their orbital flight test for Starliner. Is that a good segue?
That
What?
works. I see it. I see exactly where you're going with that.
What exactly is happening here?
I'm just the anti-segue, basically. If
You're moving backwards.
Yeah, I'm backwards. You guys are progressing forward in segue timeline. I'm going backwards, baby. I'm the anti. So remember in December, we've talked about this several times on the show, the Starliner capsule that was for the orbital flight test. In December was the Boeing Starliner capsule on top of an Atlas V. It got up into space. It was pushed off of the Atlas V rocket and left to fly on its own, at which point it started going kind of bananas. And it's just had so many problems. That was due to a timing error where it thought it was totally like 8 or 16 hours or something in a different point in the mission. So it started doing really random maneuvers that did not match up with the timeline of the mission at all. Then later they caught an error where had it deployed the service module, like the trunk of it basically, it would have flown potentially right back into the capsule and damaged it in the heat shield right before re-entering. They just there's explosive bolts that didn't perform like they thought or were a temporary solution. There were just a ton of problems with the spacecraft. Thrusters were shutting down because they were fired for too long. And everyone is sitting here going, I really hope they refly that mission before they put people on it. Because that was the point was to fly it uncrewed, test it all out, and then put crew on it, right? But when you have that many failures go wrong, everyone's just sitting here going, oh my gosh, if they don't refly this thing, then something is corrupt here, because NASA would be giving them way too much of a pass on this. And it come to find out they're claiming it's Boeing's decision, which might be true. I mean, Boeing does have a lot of new management in their stream now, in their chain. There's a lot of new management, and maybe this new management is saying, listen, it's either sink or swim for us. We have to step up. And I hope that's what's happening. I hope there's new management that doesn't want to take the shortcut, that doesn't want to try to weasel their way out of, doing another test flight and putting humans on there, endangering their lives before they prove a system is right. I hope that this is Boeing's decision and not NASA's push. So regardless,
it's the right one either way.
It's the right one either way. But I really hope that this really was Boeing's internal decision to refly this mission, because I think a lot of us assumed they'd try to, get out of it and be like, no, it's fine. We'll fix the problems we had in that test flight. It'll be ready for people. It's like, why don't you prove it's ready for people? Prove it. I think you owe it to the safety of the astronauts to do that. And sounds like that's what they're doing. And I think that's absolutely the right decision. And we should be applauding them for doing that. Again, whether or not it's because NASA has their thumb on their,
The consensus in Discord seems to be that it was not Boeing's decision.
Hey, again, I don't know. They're having to do a lot of things.
Hopefully it was.
They're having to do a lot of uncomfortable things in their company right now. And maybe, like I said, it's sink or swim, new management. Maybe a lot of people, this restaurant's under new management. Please come back in and trust our food,
Right.
Well, and okay, this is supposed to fly on what rocket?
The Atlas V.
Okay, so it has an actual chance of happening.
Oh yeah, I mean
Good.
it's happening, and it should be flying humans already, like without a doubt, really. And if everything had gone well in OFT, they would be looking at flying, or with crew flight tests relatively soon, like this summer, basically, on a similar timeline as SpaceX's Dragon capsule. Which we're still targeting mid-May at this point for Dragon, despite the world half shut down right now. So. It's ready. The rocket's definitely ready. I mean, the Atlas V rocket is the most reliable rocket you could be flying on. So, I mean, the rocket's ready. The spacecraft is not, and this is making sure that it is before they put people on top of it.
Sounds like the right move.
Yeah.
Speaking of the right
it's
move,
in Boeing's best interest. I mean, if they were to go up and lose,
oh God,
they would, yeah.
Oh, if they put people on it and something happened. That would be the end, honest. I think that'd be horrible for Boeing.
Could we officially put a fork in Boeing at that point?
Right. Yep.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well,
have we reached the end of all the things that have happened?
Or Ben, did you have one more
not quite.
thing?
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Oh.
There's some stuff happening. Not putting a fork in this episode yet. Okay, so Berlin, Gigafactory, Tesla. Apparently, Elon is saying that when the Model Y comes to Europe, it will be made in Berlin in about a year,
Cool. Wow.
according to the Twitters and the tweeters.
Wow.
And that's interesting because the Gigafactory in Berlin currently looks like a big dirt field, which was not that was definitely a source of a big controversy because, as you can tell from this photo, required them to remove many trees.
Yeah. That's a shame.
And but what's the net effect of all this, right? If they're making electric cars and those are reducing CO2, et cetera, et cetera.
I wonder how long it'd take to offset that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then also so trees, if you cut down a tree and burn it, you're releasing CO2 that it had already captured. So if I'm correct, this is a net zero effect. Is that right, Joe?
I don't know.
I feel like you've done a video on this.
It depends on what they do with the wood, I guess,
Well, but there's biomass. So biomass is considered zero emission, even though there are emissions, but those emissions had already been captured. So yeah.
And for what it's worth, this was not like an old growth forest that had been around for hundreds of years. This was a tree farm that was
right.
Okay.
made
So they'd be knocked out anyway.
It was literally they were literally planted to be cut down someday.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that is different than knocking down a forest.
Yeah. So Berlin's happening. This guy that took this shot apparently got in trouble from the police, and then he asked Elon on Twitter if he could continue doing it, and Elon said yes.
I do love how there's one tree left standing in the
Right
middle
here.
of that field. Like, what's that about?
I hope they keep it as just a little courtyard, like up or something.
Right.
This mega factory and just beep.
That was like a famous tree that they couldn't bring themselves to cut down.
It had a name. Its name
That was the
Cecil.
one tree that they couldn't get through eminent domain.
That was Cecil, the oak tree.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So Giga Berlin's happening, and things are going. Hopefully, whenever things get back to normal, that factory will begin operation next month. No, it won't.
This isn't
Maybe
China.
next year.
Yeah. What are you guys working on videos? I feel like I just before we get into this, in case I need to, I don't remember if I did 100 or 80 at this point because I did an extra set of push-ups while Joe was talking.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Should I do another set just in case?
I feel like it's only 4, but
okay, I'll do
I'm
that.
not trying to make you do more push-ups.
Joe, what are you working on?
I got a video coming out, and it's going to be kind of a long one, but it's a little bit of a shift for the channel. It's mysterious deaths and disappearances. So
that's
kind
shift.
of looking at. Well, I mean, it's more of like a real life mystery kind of thing. there was actually, I'm not giving too much away, but there were actually 5 stories originally, but it went too long, so I'm cutting one of those out, and I'm going to make a separate video out of that one all on its own. But yeah, things like ghost ships like the Mary Celeste, if you're familiar with that story. I don't want to totally give away what the whole video is about, but people who have disappeared mysteriously and, mysterious deaths and disappearances.
Interesante. Tim, are you still working on the same video?
Well, yeah, but good news is I'm done scripting. And remember how I was like, I'm going to shoot it and have it edited by next week.
Yeah,
I'm done. I'm done making predictions. Like, no more. I'm never saying I'm making a short video again because it's not true. I'm never going to say it's going to be done next week because it's not true. I think I'm worse than Elon.
You operate on Elon time.
But the good thing is I've done 2 script read-throughs with my patrons and feel really, really good about the factual information and the flow of the video and stuff. So I think it's going to be my longest.
It's like 26 pages?
26 pages.
Is that what I saw?
Longer than Aerospikes. This will probably be 110 minute or an hour and 10. I mean,
man,
I hate myself sometimes.
Well, here's what I do like about what you're doing though, is that, and I'm kind of taking your words out of your mouth, so apologies, but you started with an idea or a certain way of thinking or a mindset, and as you researched it, you have said that mindset has shifted quite a bit.
Yeah. And
to me, that is like 1000% why we do what we do, is to find the stuff that we didn't know about that makes all the difference. And I love it when that happens for me, when I start a video thinking, oh, I want to say this, and then the more I research, it's like, you know what? That's not right.
Yep.
And I need to shift the way I'm approaching it.
And I think especially with the SpaceX fans, I think they're probably the most guilty of this, of thinking that there's one way, it's the best way, it's Starship or nothing, and I'm as guilty, because the promise of Starship is unbelievable. I mean, it is. I'll give a little spoiler. I do have one line that's like at the end of the video, trying to sell, like, because SLS and Artemis and all this stuff has been going on since 2011. Like, SLS officially became a rocket on development in 2011, actually kind of in 2010. And there was no chance in even like hell's hell that that SpaceX could have sold something like Starship to NASA at the time. The promise of Starship in 2011 would have been like trying to sell a jumbo jet in 1912 to a horse farmer looking for a carriage. They had just been like, they wouldn't not only believe you, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about, Mm-hmm. And Starship, it's not really going to be a thing until it is. And then it's just like, oh, well, game over.
That's the thing now.
That curve of like impossible to all of a sudden just like total reality and total norm is going to be a very short window, and we're just, we're in that awkward, like preteen, like in between thing where it's like, like
if they can get that test configured right.
Exactly. But overall, like, this is going to be an awesome video. I'm loving it. It's puts a lot of positivity in everything. Like, totally hooray Starship, and of course, totally hooray Artemis, because Artemis actually has a lot of promise, a lot of frustrations, and I go through all of them, but a lot of fun things to talk about. So it'll be a really, really fun video.
Cool.
What about you, Ben?
I've got V3 solar roof kind of deep dive, looking at whether or not, because the price difference on the V3, I didn't realize this until recently, is staggering compared to the old version.
More expensive?
So, no, it's way cheaper.
Oh,
like
this
40
is solar
grand
roof, not
cheaper.
Solar panels.
You're like,
holy cow!
Yeah, so we're looking at it now, the solar roof, or I just did a deep dive on it. Now that it's actually out there and they're making them and all those kind of things. And so that's coming out next week, kind of looking at just whether or not that makes sense now for you and how the costs match up against other similar items and things like that. So
sweet.
Diving deep. And
cool.
I don't know if it makes sense for people to buy one of these right now. Probably not. But, eventually you'll need a roof and you'll need solar. So it's good info.
If the economy completely collapses and all the utilities go away.
That's right.
I don't think we'll get there.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I can understand somebody preparing for that.
Yep. Well,
So
dang. Cool. Well, I guess we'll probably be right back here, same time, same place, because we got nowhere else to go. So,
yeah. Thanks for watching and listening, everyone.
Yeah. Stay safe out there and keep keep your sanity, make some phone calls, do some healthy lifestyle things, like do 100 push-up bets with your friends so that you get so you get the blood flowing not on your own decisions.
Tim wakes up in the morning. Oh.
I'm gonna be dead by the time this episode comes out. That'll be my tweet is like, I can't believe I
have the DOMs.
And I'm curious, Ben, our editor, can you please note while you're editing how many times I actually did push-ups? Because I am curious if I did 100 or 120.
Well, we weren't counting. You could have just done like 10 each time. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I did 20. I don't skimp. I don't skimp on arm day.
Somebody out there will count.
Yeah, of course. They'll be like, you did 118, but if you look at the angle of your forearm, I don't know.
Yeah. That was everybody on my video.
Of course. All right.
Well, we'll see
thanks,
you guys
in
our
our
ludicrous
future.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what we do and you want to kind of help get it out there, you can give us a nice review on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whichever one you use. That kind of helps get it out there. Also, we do have a Patreon set up, so you can join us there at patreon.com/ourludicrousfuture. You can get your name in the credits, meet a whole other group of like-minded people. It's a lot of fun. We do appreciate it. We'll see you there. Thanks.